Wasn't this supposed to be the terrible year for watch releases? Hi everyone and welcome to Saluso. And yes, today we're talking about yet another new watch release for 2020, this time coming from Hublot. They've recently celebrated their 40th year anniversary. It's sometimes a bit difficult to believe that Hublot is only 40 years old as a company. Like, when we think about it, people talk about Rolex as being a younger company within watches, and they have individual collections that are older than Hublot. So what did Hublot do for their 40th year anniversary? Well, at the beginning of the year, they had the Big Bang Integral, but their real celebration was the Hublot Classic Fusion 40th Anniversary Edition. And it is essentially a Classic Fusion without much going on the dial. On the face of it, this looks like a pretty lazy attempt. But if you look into the details, look into the significance of this model, you can see there's actually a lot more than meets the eye, which normally isn't something you think about when you think of Hublot. You don't think of Hublot and discretion. So I'm going to talk about that today. So the first thing I want to discuss is how this model represents the progress that Hublot has made.
So back in 1980, Carlo Crocco released his MDM Genève Hublot. Hublot was actually the name of the model, not of the actual brand. The brand was called MDM Genève.
And this was a groundbreaking release because it was the first instance in which a watchmaker had decided to mix precious metal, in that case gold, with a rubber strap. It simply was a concept no one had really approached. The idea was that you wouldn't mix such a common material as rubber with something as luxurious as gold. And what it did is it evolved another segment of sports watches in the category that had just been invented about 8 years prior with the AP Royal Oak. But it took it to another level that the Royal Oak hadn't taken it to yet. It's important to remember that AP didn't release the Offshore until 1993. Patek didn't release the Aquanaut until 97. The Oysterflex didn't come out until the 2010s. Hublot was putting rubber straps on luxury watches long before all of them. They set the trend. It was really doing things that AP wasn't, and that none of the other brands were doing for that matter either. So what Hublot has done is they've recreated that watch, and they've used it in a way as a bit of a mission statement to show their progress and show where they're going. In terms of their progress, well, one thing you can clearly tell, this is only available in a 45 millimeters. So Hublot is putting their flag in the sand saying that we are going to keep making big watches. Now, they may not go back to the 48 millimeter King Powers, but by making this a 45, they have declared essentially that they will keep making larger size watches. They're not going to be making a 34 millimeter Big Bang anytime soon, I don't think. Secondly, we see the progress on the inside. Now, Hublot does have an in-house manufacturer, but they didn't decide to use that on this current model. But if you bear in mind, the original was using quartz movements. Hublot is now an almost completely mechanical company with in-house movements being used on their Big Bang Unico, as well as several other examples of in-house complications that they've done. They've done perpetual calendars. They did an ultra-thin Classic Fusion as well a few years ago. So they've demonstrated that they're capable of making mechanical watches. But on this, they decided just to go with their normal Sellita SW300, which for me is a bit of a disappointment. But then again, I guess they did it because people will still buy it. They do still buy it. But I'm hoping that in the future, when we see the next big milestone for Hublot, that maybe we see an in-house movement go into what is essentially for now their entry-level model. And I hope maybe this is the end of that era, and that when they do their 50th anniversary or 45th, they decide to put in a new in-house movement inside of that particular watch. We do need to bear in mind the Classic Fusion line itself was only officially reintroduced in 2010. It's only been 10 years. It took them 10 years to go with the Unico, so maybe it's on the horizon. But either way, it still shows progress as to where Hublot has come as a brand. They started out with putting all these quartz movements in their watches, and over time they've evolved to put mechanical ones in, and really they've centered a lot of their collection around that. So it's important to notice that progress as well. And then the last thing is details. When I did my review of the original Hublot Big Bang, I realized just how many details, how many little things are thought out for every single Hublot watch and especially that being one of their most famous models. With this, it's the same. Even though it's a very simple looking watch, there's still details, things like the titanium screws. The original had, I think, was about 12 different screws on them, and they were all just pretty normal steel screws. With this version, as with all modern Hublots, Hublot now has its own proprietary screws that are made in titanium. Again, it just shows how their attention to detail has expanded. And then also when it comes to materials, this anniversary model is not only offered in gold, which is an homage to the original, but also it's being offered in titanium, which has become a material of choice for Hublot at its entry level. They make very few, if any, steel watches. And then also it's being offered in ceramic, which Hublot has made a huge amount of progress in terms of different colors, melding ceramic with gold like they do with their magic gold. I think it's just, again, another showing, a very subtle showing of what Hublot is capable of and what they're looking to do in the future. And that's the essence of the Classic Fusion. It is that subtlety. They relaunched the Classic Fusion line because Jean-Claude Biver realized there were some collectors who just collected pre-Big Bang Hublots. There were people who wanted that sort of sporty but discreet look. And these watches are perfectly apt as dress watches while still being usable. If you look at this new one, for example, it's 100 meters water resistance, whereas the normal Classic Fusion is 50. So they're pushing even more into the utility of this watch while still maintaining that elegant look. So it's not usual that we see subtlety in something like Hublot, but I think when you do, you realize that they really are moving forward and maturing as a brand. This time, 15 years ago, for example, they were releasing the Big Bang. It was all about being showy, making a lot of noise. This was a subtle celebration of 40 years of pushing the limits. And now they're getting into their mature stage, so I'd really like to see what they have on the horizon. I've really been impressed with what they did at the beginning of the year with the Big Bang Integral. I'm really looking forward to seeing where they take the Classic Fusion over the next 5-10 years to see how it evolves and how that becomes a cornerstone of its market, because I think it will. I'd love to see them bring back some of the other classic models, like the Super B chronograph, see how they incorporate that, maybe use the Unico movement. There's so much potential for what they can do despite being such a young company. I think there's nothing but good things on the horizon for it. But in any case, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this new model? What do you think of Hublot as a brand? What do you think of their evolution over the past few years? And what do you want to see from them in the future? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section below. And of course, if you want to see more of my infographics and some more pictures of watches, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Shaluso. If you want to see more videos of watches, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell as well so you can see when my next video comes out. In any case, thanks for watching this video. We'll catch you on the next one.